Hello and welcome everybody. This is Sam Shankland here to bring you another episode in the series of Garry Kasparov and all that he's done. So last time we talked about a simul match that he played against the Israeli team, and we looked at a game he played against Titovsky, a really nice one. And today we're going to go back in time a little bit to 1993 for a game that he played in a World Championship match. So we saw him win the World Championship match. We saw what he did after he won it, but now we're going to see how he maintained it. So this was a game against Nigel Short. It was game 4 of their match, and Short was, the challenger from England and a fair player, I guess, but certainly not Kasparov's level. And before the candidates match started, Kasparov was asked who he thought was going to win and who he'd have to face in the World Championship. And his response was, "It will be Short, and it will be Short." And he was right on both accounts. Short won the candidates matches, and Kasparov completely annihilated him. So in the first 3 games, Kasparov won 2, both with the white pieces, and he drew 1 with black. And this was game 4, where Kasparov was playing black, and he won this one. So this gave him a 3.5 for 4 lead, which was basically insurmountable, and he did not disappoint. And he won the match in short order. So no pun intended, short order. So without further ado, we'll get to the game. So e4, c5, not a huge surprise. Knight f3, d6, d4, take, knight f6, knight c3, and a6. So we get to the Najdorf variation, which was Kasparov's favorite. So bishop g5. This move is very aggressive and was not as common back then, but it was definitely played quite a bit. It's much more common today, or it's all the rage in theory. So e6, f4, and instead of bishop e7 or knight bd7, which are the main moves today, Kasparov just went straight for the throat with queen b6, looking for a poison pawn variation. So the point of this move is to harass the pawn on b2, and it's a little bit awkward for white to defend. If he were to play a move like knight b3, that's moving a knight away from the center, and after knight bd7, well, black's just fine. Like, for example, if white tries to develop an attack after queen c2, queen c7, castle b5, it's abundantly clear that the white knight really belongs on d4, and he's going to have a very hard time generating an attack, while black's counterplay, bishop b7, b4, comes very quickly. So, and a3 might be a thought, but I don't think it helps much because black might have rook b8 to just open the b file. In any case, these positions never struck me as particularly dangerous for black. I think for white to really fight, he has to give up this pawn on b2. Like the other possible ability, rook b1, it just puts his rook on a totally stupid square and gives up any option of castling queenside. So the queen d3 and queen d2 are the 2 best moves here. I think queen d3 is getting pretty popular these days, but queen d2. Just play, that was the main line at the time. Kasparov, well, Short offered Kasparov a pawn, so Kasparov would be impolite not to take it. Queen takes b2, knight b3. So the main move is rook b1, I think. And then after queen a3, there's e5, f5, there's bishop takes f6, and then f5. Basically every single move you could imagine has been played in this position. So, but Short played knight b3, which contains a kind of hidden threat. So I'll give you guys a second to see if you can find it. Alright, if you want more time, pause your videos. The threat is a3. So for example, if b5, white just plays a3, and after rook a2 next move, he has no business saving his queen. So white is starting to capture black's queen right away, but luckily for Kasparov, he knows a little bit about queens being trapped. Plays queen a3 first, so his queen has an escape route. Short captured f6. Trying to butcher the pawn structure. G takes f6, bishop e2, knight c6, castles. So let's stop here for a moment and take stock of what's going on. Black is up a pawn and white has an atrocious structure. So in the long term, you have to figure black is going to be significantly better here. But in the short term, there could be some annoying counterplay with e5 and then knight e4, or maybe f5, trying to put pressure on e6. White has some chances to attack. So this is sort of Kasparov's bread and butter. Normally he's more of an attacking player, but this is a very sharp position where calculation and preparation are extremely important, and those were, I think, the two strongest elements of his game. So he played bishop d7. So I like this move. I mean, b5 looks kind of normal in the traditional sense to play bishop b7, but I think here, after something like e5, might just be annoying. Takes bishop f3, bishop b7, knight e4. It looks like white has pretty good play here. Could have even considered rook d1 last move. It doesn't look very pleasant for black. So with bishop d7, he's preparing to castle queenside, I believe, and then trying to hide his king away on a safe square. So king h1 from short. I'm not going to pretend I understand that move. I guess he's trying to get off this diagonal. But already it seems like Kasparov has a totally fine position. I don't think he didn't castle here, but he could have, I think. He played h5. So why don't you guys back up for a second? I probably should have given you that as a test. Why do you think black would play h5 in this position? Alright, so if you want more time, pause your videos. The main point is to control the h5 square. If you castle after bishop h5, this pawn is going to get harassed, and that's not much fun. So the bishop's also on a really nice square on h5. So h5 first from black makes sense. He realizes he's probably going to castle queenside, so he wants to control the h5 square. He's also maybe thinking advancing the h4 pawn, h-pawn further to try to open up the white king side. Okay, so knight d1. Short's plan is to play knight to e3 and then knight to c4 and harass Kasparov's queen and look at this weak pawn on d6. So Kasparov has no intention of letting this happen. So I'm going to give you guys a second to figure out. What would you do if you were playing black in this position? Alright, so if you want more time, pause your videos. This is a really good position to think about. So, okay, Kasparov played rook c8 first. So he correctly assesses that the castle queenside plan is not going to work anymore with white knight swinging to c4. But he prepares himself for direct action on the c-file. So as a result, I think he's got a pretty nice position. So I believe short plays knight e3. Yeah, and now queen b4 from Kasparov. Okay, big difference. So he plays queen b4 before the white knight gets to c4. And as a result, the white queen is attacked. Okay, obviously a queen trade would be just completely losing for white, down a pawn with a terrible structure and black having the bishop pair. So he's got to do something to avoid this, but also this e4 pawn here is getting harassed a little bit, and that, nobody likes to get harassed. It's just unpleasant. So short played c3. I was thinking queen d3, but I don't really think this is so great because black just plays queen b6, and his point is he's going to come back to c7. For example, knight c4, queen c7, and white can even take this pawn back, but it's not really going to help him. Like say knight b4. And now knight d6 we can just take, and c2 hangs at the end. Like, that pawn on d6, if it's not worth trading queens. So as a result, I think if he had put his queen on d3, Kasparov could have just dropped the queen back to c7 pretty comfortably. So let's go back to what was played in the game. c3 was played. And now, probably, if queen b6, short was going to play something like knight c4, queen c7, and now a4 to try to play a5 and conquer the b6 square. And okay, white has some counterplay, but I have a hard time believing it's enough. So going back though, Kasparov, true to his style, just took the pawn. He's not afraid of anything. His queen looks a little bit sketchy here, but it's also hard to attack. And she has the a4 square, the g6 square. So, and not only did black take a central pawn with this move, but that central pawn was a key attacking piece. That was one of the guys who advanced to e5 or supported an f5 push. So Kasparov's now up 2 pawns with a bishop pair and a bigger center, so in the long run he's completely winning, but he does have to deal with some threats. So bishop d3, forcing queen a4. So as you can see, there's no other square for the queen. And now knight c4 from short. So His position does look a little bit precarious for Kasparov at the moment because his queen has no squares and knight b6 is a big threat. So how do you think Kasparov dealt with this problem? Give me a second if you want to figure it out. Okay, so Kasparov played rook c7. I think rook d8 was maybe a better move, just to control the d-pawn. I thought that was a little bit more solid. c7 is more active, but I don't think activity is so important for black here. I think he just wants to save himself. And once that happens, he's got, more than enough long-term assets to win the game. But Kasparov played rook c7 instead. So one thing that I don't like here is just that the d6 pawn is a little bit more tender, but Kasparov clearly showed that he didn't care. So knight b6 was played, queen a3. Now knight c4 would be a draw. So Short has that at his disposal, but that's not really what he should be looking for in this position because, when you're down by 2 points in the match, trying to make a draw with the white piece is probably not your best course of action. So, although I think objectively Short probably should take that chance here because he played rook e1, trying to generate some attack with knight d5 or f5 or something, but it really just falls flat on its face. So Kasparov plays a strong move, knight e7. So the point of this move is he's stopping all of these threats from white. Like he's controlling the d5 square, he's blocking the e file, and it makes a lot of sense. The only quote-unquote problem you would see would be this knight c4 move. Now after queen a4, knight takes d6 check, king d8, knight takes f7 check, white ransacks black's village. But going back, we see what Kasparov's idea was. He just sacrificed the exchange here. So this made a lot of sense because he's already up 2 pawns with a great structure, so he shouldn't have to worry about much in that regard. And he got rid of white's best attacking piece. And now he's got an extremely solid position with good pieces, and there's no reason for him to worry about anything. So, if you think to yourself, are white's rooks really that good here? Well, the answer is no. They can't do anything. So, white's next plan would probably be something like f5 to try to open lines, so Kasparov played h4. So, basically, I don't think white has any business playing f5 just yet. I think after e5, the position remains closed in the center, and black can prepare for h3, bishop c6 business. So, but he did play f5 soon enough, so he plays h4 first. And Short played bishop d3, which is supposedly a bad move. Everyone is suggesting bishop e2 instead, to try to go to f3 or maybe g4. So, but after bishop d3, which I guess is also trying to help prepare f5, black did play f5 himself here. And you realize all of his pieces are just going to come to perfect posts. His bishop can come to g7. His king can stay in the center. His other bishop can come to c6. Knight can come to d5. There's just so many perfect squares for all of black's pieces, and his king has no problems at all. And while white's rooks are looking kind of passive. So I would say black is clearly better here, and Kasparov has played a really nice game so far. So bishop e2, bishop g7, and now white plays c4, which I guess hopes to stop d5 and gets the pawn off the weak square of c3. So Kasparov found a really nice idea, I think, and he played h3. So the point of this move is to sort of loosen up white's king. Obviously, white doesn't want to open the h file, so he plays g3. But now Kasparov plays d5. So his goal is to open up the position. Now, it starts by opening up this diagonal for general inhabitants. And if white were to play c5, that makes the concession of completely closing down the center. And there's a lot of ways for black to maintain a large advantage. My favorite is bishop a4, just trying to win more pawns. And let's say white protects his knight. You can play like knight c6. And black controls like every single important square, and there's really nothing white can do. So he's maybe planning to play bishop takes b3 and queen takes c5 at some point. So c5 doesn't really make sense, but the problem is black is threatening to take on c4, which will distract this bishop, and then play bishop c6 check, so bishop f3 is impossible. So white could consider taking, but after knight takes d5, this comes with the incidental threat of bishop c3, which is really, really annoying. And it seems like his position is really falling apart for short. So the game continued, bishop f3, d takes c4, and now rook b1, I think. Or did he play rook b1 yet? Or maybe he played something else first. Yeah, I actually did not see videos this early in the morning anymore. Oh yeah, he played rook e3, same idea. So with rook e3 or rook b1, the point is that if you take the knight after rook takes b3, say queen moves somewhere, rook takes b7, white gets good counterplay on the 7th rank and activates his pieces, and now black's king really does feel a little bit unsafe. So, although it's probably also not that bad after something like knight d5. But Kasparov was not looking for something this complicated. He just played simply c3, maintaining a very strong passed pawn on the 6th rank. He now has 3 pawns for the exchange. So, short just captured the pawn, sacrificing the exchange back and hoping for some play. But Kasparov came up with a really nice idea. So, Kasparov found a really strong move here now that short had given the exchange back. So, why don't you guys see if you can find it? Alright, well, you should pause your videos because it might take a little while, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. So, if you've already paused it and are playing it now, if you left your rook on h8 hanging, shame on you. The queen is attacking him. If you move your h8 rook, that's an okay move, but it would be better to find a different one. And I remember when they taught me at the Brooklyn Chess School many years ago, they said, if you want to keep your king safe, when in doubt, castle. And that's exactly what Kasparov did. He castled. And it looks a little bit odd, but really, like, there's no pressure at all on the king side. The entire game has been playing on the queen side in the center, and Kasparov is just going to switch directions now. So, after castling, Kasparov's still up 2 uncompensated pawns, and he can expect to win the game, which he did in short order. So, short played rook g1, just praying for g4 and wanting some kind of counterplay, but Kasparov was all over this one. Rook c8, attacking the queen. Now queen f6, and bishop c6. So, you know, the more pieces trade, the closer we get to the king and pawn endgame, the better off black's going to be. So, bishops get traded. And Kasparov takes with the rook, strong move, because he's getting ready to use the c-file, and more importantly, after g4, he can play this move knight g6 to make white's life miserable. So that is indeed what happened. Takes, and now black took on a2. He's got 2 connected passed pawns now. Queen takes h3. And Kasparov found a strong move, queen c2, which looks for rook d4, rook c3, and queen e4 possibilities. So the game continues. f5, rook c3, good move. And I think short made the last mistake here with queen g4. His last try was like knight d4, but after queen e4 check, queen g2 takes, knight e5. You know, white has the passed h-pawn, but black has every expectation of winning this endgame. So I know if I didn't win this endgame with black, some chairs would be flying around the room sometime. So, but after queen g4, rook takes b3, strong move, and then queen c6 check. White resigned because no matter what, pieces are getting traded. After rook g2, rook b1, white is mated. And if queen g2, queen takes g2, rook takes, rook b1 check, we trade the rooks as well. And after king takes g2, f takes g6, black just has these 2 passes on the queen side for nothing. And I am not going to explain to you what happens if white plays queen to f3 or queen to e4 here, so I'll leave that one up to you. So on the whole, a really nice game from Kasparov. Another example of how he plays, you know, sharp, dynamic chess. You know, usually he likes to be on the attacking side, but here he sort of played defense, and by the end he sort of was on the attacking side. So this was, I think, a really nice game, and thanks for watching, and look for part 8 coming out soon. And Sam Shanklin signing off.